Whoa, that was close. Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about Ohio State basketball, a little bit of a change. So right now, as of recording this video, the Ohio State Iowa game just ended a few minutes ago, and man, was that a game! And Ohio State really they had the lead the majority of the game. Iowa started off real hot, and I was honestly thinking like, oh god, this is gonna be kind of what it was in Iowa City the last time these two teams played when Iowa blew Ohio State out of the building. And that was really when Ohio State was kind of gaining momentum, and Iowa just snapped that right out, and it was back to Ohio State winning and then losing a game, winning and then losing a game that they did for basically a 3 4 months before the end of the season, where Ohio State really went on they went on their longest winning streak of the season now, and that has now extended into today. But Ohio State is real confusing. There's been multiple times where been wanting to make videos about this team, and it's just like in the regular season, it was just like, why would I do that? Why would I put myself through that? That was so, like the Michigan game, both the Michigan games in the regular season was, an opportunity for me, and I'm just like, I don't like who wants to go through that right now with how depressing almost this team was through the entire regular season. And then at the end of the season, they don't play the best opponents. Indiana and was it Maryland, I think, was our last two games. Both not very good teams. Indiana was a really good team, but was not, they're out of the tournament. They lost in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. So they're completely done. They're out of the tournament entirely. There's no shot that they're going to make it into March Madness this year, unfortunately for them. But Ohio State, they did their job today. Their job was to basically win and you're clinched. They've probably been clinched ever since they beat Purdue. Honestly, if we're being completely honest, they've probably been in since they beat Purdue. But this was a game where if Ohio State wins, there's no denying Ohio State a spot in March Madness this year. And that's what Bruce Thornton really came back to do, was to make March Madness, to make a run of the Big Ten tournament, and to be respectable again. And Ohio State was kind of, they were struggling. Like I said, they were winning and then losing and then winning and then losing and then winning and then losing. They've had a couple of really, really bad losses, like the game to Pitt at the buzzer beater really early in the season, and that loss to Iowa. And of course Tilly was out in that game, but I don't think Ohio State had really had any business losing by as much as they did in Iowa City a few weeks ago. But Ohio State came into this tournament really on a roll, and they showed it why they are one of the scariest teams that you don't want to play in March right now. Ohio State's leaders in points, of course, Bruce Thornton. I'm looking at the screen over here. It's got all my stats. That's why I'm looking over here. Bruce Thornton with 24 points, 6 rebounds, led the team in that as well. And then I want to see how many assists he had too. So Bruce Thornton he played 38 minutes, 24 points, went 10 for 14 from the field, 6 rebounds and 3 assists. So it's a Bruce Thornton type game. Didn't have to do a whole lot. Was definitely the leader of the team, but this was not a game where he had to take over. Ohio State kind of they did it as a team, which is what Ohio State fans want from this team. Bruce Thornton, as much as we love Bruce Thornton, he's not good enough to carry teams to victory. He's going to be a guy that is going to lead you, but he's going to need help. And that's exactly what Tilly provided in this game. Tilly, in 29 minutes, had 16 points, went 5 of 6 from the field, did miss 2 free throws, especially the big one at the end of the game, which kept it a 3-point game, which honestly kept Iowa in the game at the very end. Ended up missing one. Iowa does not make the 3 at the end of the game, which of course does not cost Ohio State the win. So he did miss 2 free throws, had 4 rebounds and 2 assists. So he did what Tilly did, but really what he did in this game does not really reflect on the stat sheet over here. Iowa basically played a game where it was, why am I blanking? Bruce Thornton was not going to beat us in this game. He's not going to take over a game and have one of his marquee games on us. You were going to have to beat us with somebody else, and Ohio State did exactly that with Tilly. Tilly was running. They were running the pick and roll offense, especially late in that first half. The pick and roll was working perfectly for Ohio State, and Iowa really could not stop it. And they made their adjustments in the second half, and that's good on Iowa, but it really was just too little too late. Ohio State, once they're up by that much, and it really looked like Ohio State was going to give up this lead. And if Iowa and Ohio State would have went into overtime, I think Iowa probably wins because they had the momentum coming in or at the end of that second half, you know. So I'm really, really glad that Ohio State did win this game. They are on to the Michigan game tomorrow, I believe it is, and that is a huge game. Not only for bragging rights, because no Ohio State team wants to go winless in a season against Michigan, especially a shot at another opportunity to beat their arch rivals. And Ohio State has gone 0 for 2 so far this season. They lost in Columbus. They lost in Ann Arbor this year. Ohio State kind of kept it respectable, but Michigan ended up pulling away in the second half and in both games, really. And, Ohio State had their chances, and Michigan just, they were the better team. They are the better team. I don't think any Ohio State fan is really saying that Michigan is not the better team right now as it comes to basketball. Men's basketball, that is. But, this is another shot for Ohio State to get back at the Wolverines. And if you're the Wolverines, I don't know if you really care about this tournament. Obviously, it's really great to have the bragging rights, being the regular season Big Ten champions, and then adding on to being the tournament champions. Obviously, for Michigan, that is a big bragging right to have. But at the same time, I feel like if you're Michigan, you probably want, maybe you do want to win this game, but I don't know about going into far in the tournament. You know what I mean? So if you lose to Ohio State, I don't really think that's not really the end of the world. You're still going to be a number 1 seed. You're still going to be favored to win the national championship and win the whole thing this month. And I don't know if it's basically what I'm saying is I don't know if it's in Michigan's best interest to win this tournament. I think it's probably better for Michigan if they had the longer rest period in between the this bracket and of course March Madness that's coming up in a few short coming days. And for Ohio State, that, like I said, you're in the tournament with this win. You did your job. Iowa, you can argue, probably did their job by not losing in the first round. This was an 8 and 9 seed game, so really Iowa was just one off of getting that extra bye. And and this was a good game because these teams are clearly really, really even. This game could have obviously went Iowa's way if Iowa changes up a few things a little bit quicker in the first half, especially defensively. Ohio State didn't really go off until that little bit like the mid of the second half, where I kind of thought, okay, that Ohio State's kind of got this in hand, and I really stopped paying attention. And I'm like, I still have it on, and I'm watching, but not really paying close attention. And all of a sudden, I see Iowa starting to chip away at this lead, and it was like, I think the Ohio State got up to like a 12 or 13 point lead, was their biggest lead of the game. And I was like, okay, Iowa's done. They're not going to come back. And Iowa just would not die. They would not go away in this game. And that's really, really good for an Iowa team that is going to be an underdog probably in the first round of the bracket. Iowa gets a shot to kind of rest and recover and study. And, maybe Iowa even knows like who they're playing against or who might be their matchup in the first round of the March Madness tournament, but they're in. Ohio State is obviously in. They did their job in this tournament. Honestly, if Ohio State loses to Michigan, it's not the worst thing in the world. Ohio State will probably be an 8 seed. They might even, if they beat Michigan, they might be jumped up to a 7 seed, which obviously the higher you get in the seed, the more beneficial. In theory, it's more beneficial to you to be a higher seed in this tournament. But for Ohio State, being in the tournament is really an accomplishment of itself. Now it's up to them to make a run. Ohio State, I'm really anxious to see who they play right now, because it looks like I saw in like the few bracketology stuff, it's like Georgia is one of their first round matchups, and Clemson. There's a few other teams in there that Ohio State's been matched up against. But we have to see. It's all really about matchups. I don't really know a lot about Clemson or Georgia as a team in basketball. But I'm sure, everyone else and that club in Ohio State does. So That's really all I got for this. Let me talk about the Miami the Miami team that just went down today, and that was a huge loss for Miami. They lose to UMass in the quarterfinals of the MAC tournament, 87-83. And if you're Miami, I don't know how you like Miami has skated by a lot. They just let me see what they just escaped. I think it was let me see who it was. Oh, was this their first? I thought they played another game before this one. No, so they escaped Ohio. And if you did not watch that Miami Ohio game, man, you missed out on a really good game in Athens. That game goes to overtime. At the very end, not Miami fans, but Ohio fans actually start throwing stuff at the Miami players. It's a rivalry game. It is what it is. Miami, you could tell they liked being the villain in that building. But really good win, we thought, for Miami, and it really looked like Miami was going to be a lock to make the tournament. And after their loss to UMass in the quarterfinal, does anyone really think that Miami's a lock to make the tournament anymore? I think probably they still are in the tournament. They're 31-1. They went undefeated in the regular season in the MAC, and I know it's just the MAC, but that's really hard to do, especially in basketball, where any team can get hot at the right time. You can be cold, especially it was like when the Warriors were at their peak and they were winning games. Like every game that you play, it's going to be the team that you play. It's going to be their best shot at you. They're going to take their best shot at you. And Miami kind of had that going, and they survived a lot of these games. And UMass, went 7-11 in the MAC, 7-11 in the MAC. They finished with an overall record of 17-15. You lose to that team. And Miami had the lead at half. It was only by 2, but you lose by 4 against the UMass team. That's not very good. It's not even a very good MAC school. It is insane. And it goes to show you that any team can really win at any given time, especially in March. And I don't know what happened. I'm not going to pretend like I know a whole lot about this Miami team other than they were, of course, the only undefeated team left in the country. And if you're Miami, you're probably going to get an 11 seed, maybe a 10 seed if you're lucky. And you're just going to have to see. I don't think anyone is really picking Miami to make a deep run. There obviously are going to be people that pick them to get out of the first round. I don't think that's going to be the majority of people, though. I can probably tell you, just to give you a preview to my bracket, which I will be doing a video on that of me doing a bracket here on this channel. But that is just going to be, it's going to be hard for me to pick Miami in the first round. Yes, they are undefeated, and they are going to have the best record loss-wise in the country, because they still are only going to have, at the very minimum, 2 losses, or the max 2 losses on the season. But I'm just going to go through the schedule here that I have. They handle Old Dominion in their first game here. UNC Asheville, they only beat by 3. They beat BG by 10. It's a good win. Only beat Akron by 3, and Akron's a respectable team in the MAC. Toledo, they survive against. They actually killed Toledo in that game, 87-73. They beat UMass in the regular season only by 2. And they only play, I think they only played UMass once this year, apart from, of course, the tournament. But in the regular season, I think they only played UMass once, and they won by 2. And that was at home. They beat Northern Illinois. They survive against Buffalo on the road by 2. They destroy Marshall. They destroy Ohio. Oh, there's UMass again. So they did play UMass twice, and they destroyed UMass on the road that time, 86-77. And I shouldn't say destroyed. They beat them, but that's there. They destroyed Bowling Green at home, 91-77. Beat Eastern Michigan. Survived against Western Michigan, survived against Toledo, both by 2, and then survived against Ohio in that overtime game by 2. So a lot of these games were just, survive and advance, survive, move on. And, that's just, with a team like that, where with basketball, where it's just so up and down, and not the best team is not going to win every time you play. I'm curious to see honestly what draw they get in the tournament, but like where their seed is, because with Ohio, with Miami, Ohio, it's crazy to think that they might actually lose out or and miss the tournament because of this. Like Miami is it. Let me see at the most recent bracketology. Give me 1 second. Let me see what they're at in the most recent bracketology. So they're an 11 seed, and they're scheduled to play North Carolina. I can tell you right now, I'm probably going to pick North Carolina in that game if that does end up happening. But honestly, Miami could drop down to a 12 seed, and be like in contention for being one of the first four to play in those games. I don't know if they'll drop all the way to a 16 seed, actually. They might only just drop to, an 11 seed or a 12 seed again. But they're not going to be they're not going to have a high seed. They're going to be an underdog in any game they really play. Speaking of Ohio State, okay, so Ohio State is a 9. They're scheduled to be a 9 seed in the most recent bracketology according to ESPN. So take that with a grain of salt if you want. But Ohio State is scheduled to play, or is projected to play, TCU in the most recent bracketology. And it's going to be an interesting game for Ohio State. We'll just leave that at that. But with Miami, they're scaring me. I think they're going to make the tournament, honestly. But I don't anticipate them making it very far. I honestly don't even think they're going to get out of the first round, unfortunately for them. But a lot of people were preying on their downfall, and I don't really think that's really right. But is what it is. Michigan, of course, going to be the 1 seed. The 1 seeds are locked up. It's Michigan, it's Duke, it's Florida, and it's Arizona. Those are the guys those are the teams that are going to be the number 1 seeds, as long as they don't completely blow it in their respective tournaments. But more than likely, they will be their 1 seeds. I think Duke is basically locked in there. Michigan is locked in there. At the very least, they could be a 2 seed, but I highly, highly doubt that. Florida, same thing with Michigan, depending on how they do in the SEC championship tournament. And Arizona, I think, is probably really well locked up in there. They have a shot, or they don't even have a shot. They're more likely to get a 1 seed than anything. But yeah, that's really my early preview of the March Madness tournament. Ohio State really had a really good game today, locked up their spot in the March Madness tournament, regardless of what happens their next game against Michigan. Hopefully, Ohio State can pull that off. I don't anticipate Ohio State going all the way and winning the tournament. I definitely think that if they get any farther, I think they'll probably lose in the semifinals. But my biggest fear for Ohio State is them to burn out in this tournament to try and prove a point and get a higher seed in the March Madness tournament. But it's not going to be a top 5 seed, so I think that Ohio State should just kind of, if they can beat Michigan, great. But after that, I think you kind of put the brakes on a little bit, try and rest a few people, and get ready for the long haul that is going to be this next month of basketball tournaments. And yeah, that is going to be it for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you did make it this far, please like and give me a subscribe. I will be doing more of this stuff. I'll react to some games maybe in March and give updates to my bracket. I'll even make a bracket here in a video format for you guys. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'll see you when I see you.